And what is the very least that we can do? I mean, it doesn't really cost us anything. But the very least that we can do is say thank you. But how do we say thank you? I mean, we don't even know. I'll ask for the Gold Star family to raise their hand to the that. But I'll bet you couldn't pick out a Gold Star family sitting right next to you unless you knew they lost their loved one. So the families aren't out there identifying themselves for the most part so that you can give them thanks. So what do? Some people say, well, we have Memorial Day, we thank them on Memorial Day. Nobody thanks our fallen on Memorial Day. And I say that with a lot of respect. When I say nobody, because the general population of this country has no clue. A recent survey indicated that 80% of Americans don't even know why we have Memorial Day. 80% of this country. Okay, so if there's that large of a population who doesn't know why we have Memorial Day, then when are we remembering? Because that's really the only day left, right? But to the families who lost their loved ones, every day is Memorial Day, right? I mean, you've either got a tattoo or some kind of, remembrance of those in your family who gave their life, right? I can imagine some of the families have got tattoos of some sort as a reminder, right? So it's important to send this message because all of the population benefit from the freedoms that exist in this country. All of us benefit, so why not be appreciative? So what we found out as an organization is there wasn't any way to be appreciative. I mean, there wasn't any way to send a message because of that not knowing who the families are. You might know one, you might know two, but there are tens of thousands of families across this nation who have given their loved ones, and friends who have lost battle buddies, and on and on and on. And so that's why the Honor and Remember flag was created, to be a public, visible reminder and a way to send a message to the families and say thank you. So we were established in 2008 on Memorial Day. 2 weeks after that, in '08 on Flag Day, a gentleman named John Bologna, who had lost his college roommate, First Lieutenant Michael Cleary, he decided that he wanted to do something. He was a young kid, he was full of passion, full of energy. What am I going to do? He thought, I'll run. Kind of like a Forrest Gump thing. I'm going to run across America, and I'm going to honor my brother, right? And I'm going to make sure that all those men and women who have died up to that point are also honored. So he created the first Run for the Fallen. And he took, at that time, 3,800 battle casualties up to that moment in '08. And he put them on a trail across America, and he ran for about 72 days. And every mile he stopped, and he honored an individual service member by name. Well, he and I became friends within actually 2 weeks of that. And within 3 years, his organization became our organization because it was the perfect way to do what? To get the public involved in appreciating the men and women by name who gave their lives for our freedom. Perfect. And so 2 years ago we thought, oh my gosh, it's coming up to the 10th anniversary of both of our organizations. We need to do something big. We need to make a statement in this country that no one will forget. And so we thought, let's create a new Run for the Fallen. We call it America's Run for the Fallen. And I decided that what we would do was not to forget anyone who had given their lives in service to our country. Where initially we talked about battle casualties, and I know that the flag covers everyone who died while serving, regardless of how they died, in training, by accident, even by disease. Many of our men and women are dying from some kind of chemical, that has been inflicted upon them, on and on. And those that have died by post-traumatic stress. So we compiled a list that came up to very close to 20,000. People ask me, how do we get that number of 20,000? Well, that's how we get it. 20,000 men and women. We have the largest database of fallen service members than even the DoD. And the reason we do is because of that inclusion of the post-traumatic stress, because that's not accounted for in the DoD, especially after they've left the service. So if it's service connected, we honor that. So that number, 20,000, was, what do we do with that? I mean, that's a lot of men and women. How do we run for them? How do we truly honor them respectfully? So what we thought we would do was find some commonality within those 20,000. And what we found was unique dates of death. They all died on a specific day. Day, month, year. So we thought, okay, let's find out how many unique dates of death there are that would encompass all of that number. We came up with about 5,000, a little over 5,000 unique dates of death. And we thought, yeah, that is a number that we could manage, and we could actually build a trail across the country and weave it and wind it around as many places as we could, from the start of the original run in Fort Irwin, California, to the end of the original run, which we would have ended anyway, Arlington National Cemetery, where many, many, many of these heroes are buried. And so that's what we did. We put together this unique tribute trail. And by doing that, it does a couple of things, but one most important thing is that it allows families to know who died on the same day as their loved one. That is an important thing. Gold Star families are always looking for commonality, for bonds, for ways of adding additional healing to that process. And many don't know how many others may have died on that day. And so as we laid out this tribute trail, and we're running a mile for each date of death, we could be calling out one name at a mile, or could be calling out 50. And very often, we're calling out 10 to 15 large numbers on single dates of death. And they're not always unique incidents, like a helicopter crash or some kind of a crash incident. We started with the date October 12, 2000. That was the incident of the USS Cole. That was our first mile. So we ran that first mile. We called out those 17 sailors who had been killed. And then the next mile was the next unique date of death. It happened to be October 13th. And then whatever the next date was. And so I'm painting you a picture, a visual picture, so you can see that we started calling out in the year 2000. And every day, or every mile, was another date of death as we crossed now into 9 states. And we are now running for the year 2009. So we have run for 9 years, almost 9 years. We haven't finished on 9. We've run almost 9 years of casualties. And we are up to, what mile? 2,800? 2922. So in the last 63 days, this is our 63rd day of running, we have run 2,922 miles. And that is what? 2,922 dates of death, right? Every mile is a date of death. So we are traveling to Arlington on a trek of 6,000 miles, but we have run 2,922. Now I mentioned that we started planning for this 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And you know that we've had more casualties since the first day we started planning. So we had to prepare for that. We had to have the foresight of knowing that were going to be more deaths. So we left ourselves another 1,000 miles on the end of those 5,000 so that we could make sure that everyone was accounted for. And we're getting closer. We're now within 50 miles of Arlington Cemetery after leaving all of that space 2 years ago. Every month, we probably add 30 to 40 names. We wanted this to be the most comprehensive fallen veteran tribute ever thought of, ever put together, and ever executed. It's taken us that long to get right here to Lewis, Iowa. This is an historic moment. It's not going to happen again, not in this vein, not in this manner. And so you're here at a time that's very important. And I hope that this will stay with you for a long, long time. So what do we do at every mile? We have a core group, we have a core runner. We have one runner actually that's with us the entire time. And I always embarrass her and point her out, but Kristen, raise your hand just for a second. She personally, out of that 2,900 miles, has run 690 miles herself. So just 80. And why is that? Because very often as we're running, we don't have any runners. And if we don't have any runners, our mission is to run to every marker and call those names out loud. And so rather than drive to a marker, Kristen will say, no, I'm jumping out and I'm running. And so she is very often, and I hate to point out, to pick on you, Kristen, but I'm just making a point of how important this mission is to call these names out loud. That we're going to do it no matter what. No matter what conditions and no matter, what bodies we have, we're going to figure it out. Even our videographers have run miles. But we haven't had to do that in Iowa. I'm going to ask all the runners that ran today, just raise your hand. Say all these runners. We have physically been able to have teams out there every single time so that each one of these heroes were properly remembered. And we were able to carry our full contingent of flags for every mile today, and we ran 53 miles today. So that was huge for us because it energizes us and it allows us to feel as if we are doing something that's important and that people want to rally around and support. Very, very important. So what do we do at every mile? We are very consistent and very reverent and very respectful. The runners are carrying those full-size flags. They're carrying the United States flag for our nation. They're carrying the Iowa state flag because we're running in the state of Iowa. They're carrying a flag that is the honor and sacrifice flag, which is a flag that our organization established 2 years ago on the 15th anniversary of 9/11, and it honors our fallen police and our fallen firefighters. You guys, Terry should see that flag. And because why? Because of this. Because they have our back. We had the police escorting us all day long, and we're here being hosted at the fire station. We want to make sure that they know that although we're not calling their names out loud, we're thinking about their loss and appreciating their service. And then the fourth flag that we carry is the Honor and Remember flag that I have spoken about, because it honors all service members from every generation and every cause of death. And that is really who we're running for, isn't it? We personalized the version that we're carrying that says America's fallen military and their families. It is not just about those that gave their lives. It's about the families that are left behind, because they're going to be grieving the rest of their lives. And we need to let them know that we have not forgotten and never will forget. And so they're carrying those four full-size flags in the wind, mind you. And you guys didn't have it today, but we have carried the flag in 30 to 50 mile-an-hour winds. those flags. So, and we didn't waver. So it's something that's part of the mission. Nothing has stopped us weather-wise, actually. They're also carrying a placard with the names of those heroes that we're running for, their marker, their mile. And they're carrying a set of flags for each one of those names. So we have one set of flags, which is a U.S. flag and an honor and remember flag for each one of those names. So what they'll do is they'll run up to a marker. Have any of you seen this on our live? This is live feed. So a few of you have. This is happening live. You can go to our website, runforthefallen.org, and watch this happening live all day long. So they run up to a predetermined location, and that location is determined in different ways. And they come to attention. They ask if there's any Gold Star families there as a matter of habit, because often there are. And so we do that in reverence. And plus, Gold Star families may be watching us. And then, after acknowledgement, we read a placard that says this hero marker is dedicated to those service members who lost their lives on this particular day. And they'll read that date of death. And then after that, they will read all of those heroes' names. And as they're being read, those sets of flags will be planted in the ground. If we can plant them in the ground and the dirt is soft enough, then we do that one at a time. If not, we symbolically touch the earth and hand them to one of our teammates. And once that is done, everyone comes to attention and we hand salute those names, those heroes that we recognize. Why? Because it's important that those names not be forgotten. And then we pick up the next placards, and off we go to the next, and a new sets of flags for the number of heroes, and off we go to the next marker. And we do this day after day, mile after mile, hour after hour. We're running about, we started at 7 a.m. every morning. We just ended at 5. That's 10 hours of running. That was happening today. About all these men and women that ran with us, 10 hours of running, no breaks. We don't stop. We rotate teams, and that happens every single day. We do get a day off every 2 weeks, but it's a working day off preparing for, the next portion of what we're doing. And so it's very grueling, not only physically, it's probably the most physically demanding run that any runner will do. Even those that are ultra trained will say it's really difficult because we're starting, we're stopping, we're meeting families, and you add the emotional toll of it as well. So it's very, very difficult for us to do it. But our mission is to be the most comprehensive. When we end up in Arlington Cemetery, we hope to read the last name of the last person who died at that very moment that we know of. That's why we say this will be the most comprehensive fallen veteran tribute trail ever compiled. And the time it took to put it together, it's not going to happen again. We're talking about doing smaller runs in the state, but something to this proportion will not happen again. So one of the things that we do every single night, and it doesn't matter if we're in a parking lot of a hotel, in an RV park, or in the presence of wonderful support like we have here, we reread the names of all those that we ran for that day. It's important to us for a lot of reasons, but we were the only ones that heard them at every mile. The families may not have been listening at that time. There could have been road noise because it's very, very loud as the trucks go by and other vehicles. And so we want to make sure that each name is properly read and that each one who is with us at the end of an evening can stand in for those families who aren't with us, whose names they're not going to hear. And so you get to, as a collective group, you get to hear those names that we ran for today and those dates that we ran for today and honor those men and women with us. So we ran today 53 dates of death. for 185 men and women. So divide that out and you'll see that there was more than one at each mark. All right, 53 for 185 servicemen and women. And so we're going to take the time, I'm going to quit, and we're going to take the time to reread those names. And Kristen and whoever else has volunteered to read those names, I would ask that you silence your cell phone, please. And you can sit or stand, it's up to you. It's not going to take you minutes to read 185, it'll take a few minutes. So just be aware of your own comfort.
So the dates we ran for today were March 8th through May 2nd, 2009. Sergeant George Anthony Watson, United States Army. Specialist Christopher Neil Lanham, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Kerry Leon Bell Jr., United States Army. Private First Class Patrick A. DeVoe II, United States Army. Private Curtis James Moore, United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class Latanya Ada Marie Dickens, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Laney Lane, United States Army. Captain Victor Lamont Brown, United States Army. Colonel James Jacob Flynn, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Donald Howard Schmold, United States Army. Sergeant John Galen West, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Charles Lester Weaver, United States Air Force. Lance Corporal Patrick A. Malone, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Reginald Burgess Jr., United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Mark Matthew Marison, United States Army. Private Rachel Marie Norfleet, United States Army. Seaman Apprentice Kevin G. Baker, United States Navy. Private Anthony Hector Vargas, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Archie A. Taylor, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Randall Brian Watson Jr., United States Army. Private First Class Jason Paul Gambles, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Timothy L. Bowles, United States Air Force. Sergeant Christopher P. Abetta, United States Army National Guard. Specialist Norman L. Kane III, United States Army National Guard. Specialist Robert M. Winger, United States Army National Guard. Lance Corporal John Bradley Breen, United States Marine Corps. Private William Nicholas Tripp, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer First Class Terrence Kenyon Phillips, United States Navy. Specialist Mark Douglas Brantley, United States Army. Sergeant Major Victor Eugene Hanshaw, United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class William Carl Jopra, United States Navy. Sergeant Sean Francis Epperly, United States Army. Specialist Adam Staples Gage, United States Army. Sergeant Keith Robert Nowicki, United States Army. Sergeant Stephen Lawrence Holder, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Second Class Yamil Francisco Order Ramirez, United States Navy. Sergeant Jose R. Escobedo Jr., United States Army. Staff Sergeant Danielle M. Nianjadalo, United States Army. Lance Corporal Daniel J. Geary, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer First Class Christina Nicole Medina, United States Navy. Sergeant Joshua David Pollock, United States Army. Private Samuel Lee Moody, United States Army. Private First Class Jarvis Galloway, United States Army. Senior Airman Danielle Nicole Brinzer, United States Air Force. Corporal Anthony Lee Williams, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Justin Tyne Antisdo, United States Army. Specialist Emmanuel Lorenzo Blanding, United States Army. Specialist Jonah Marquis Townsend, United States Army. Private First Class Adam J. Hart, United States Army. Master Sergeant Josh Jackson Jr., United States Army. Private Sean David Weimer, United States Army. Corporal Michael W. Hewlett, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Robin White Jr., United States Navy.
Staff Sergeant Billy Joe McLaughlin, United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel Alva M. Ward, Jr., United States Army. Gunnery Sergeant John Henry Roy III, United States Marine Corps. First Lieutenant George Sharp Dodgen III, United States Army. First Sergeant First Class Bradley Glenn Snipes, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Raphael A. Fertrell, United States Army. Specialist Thomas James Sharp, United States Army. Sergeant First Class David Lee Dayton, United States Army. Specialist Craig Reginald Hamilton, United States Army. Private Eric James Lynn, United States Army. Airman First Class Kyle Franklin Henson, United States Air Force. Tech Sergeant Deborah Arlene Heitman, United States Air Force. Lieutenant Florence B. Cho, United States Navy. Lieutenant Junior Grade Francis L. Toner IV, United States Navy. Senior First Class William McKinley Thomas III, United States Army. Private First Class James Edward Ritt, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Robert Joseph Legacy, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant First Class Timothy Paul Danko Jr., United States Army. Specialist Charles Carruthers Clements Jr., United States Army. Sergeant Brandon Michael Nowski, United States Army. Major Larry Anthony Belcher, United States Army. Sergeant Devin C. Coach, United States Army. Lance Corporal Nelson M. Lantigua, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Zachary William Taylor, United States Army.
Staff Sergeant Matthew Martin Sneak, United States Army. First Lieutenant Jonna B. Foland, United States Air Force. Lance Corporal Andrew Joseph Kwasnichka, United States Marine Corps. Corporal Richard McShann, United States Marine Corps. Senior Chief Petty Officer Gregory Lee Burns, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Jamel Lamar Morris, United States Army. Private First Class Penareth Shalom, United States Army. Sergeant Daniel J. Beard, United States Army. Lance Corporal Stephen F. Dearman, United States Marine Corps. Ensign Christopher Matthew Gallagher, United States Navy. Fireman Amber Patricia Winborn, United States Navy. Private Cassandra Nicole Ethel, United States Army. Sergeant George Anthony Kellum, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Philip A. Myers, United States Air Force. Lance Corporal Cody Lee Kruger, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Domingo Dominic Suevas, United States Army. Specialist Juan Carlos Luna, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer for Garland Dean Wagner, United States Army. Specialist Israel Candelara Mejas, United States Army. Colonel Stephen Emery Mittick, United States Air Force. Tech Sergeant Maurice Britt, United States Air Force. Specialist Adam M. Kulagowski, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Russell Dunham, United States Army. Petty Officer 3, Eric Peter Rasmussen, United States Navy. Warrant Officer Judson Eric Mount, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Michael Gabriel Smith, United States Army. Sergeant Marlon Anthony Monroe, United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel John Sherman Manley, United States Air Force. Chief Petty Officer Frank Carl Belmar, United States Navy. Lance Corporal Blaze A. Oleski, United States Marine Corps. Fireman Luis Rodolfo Urbina, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Margaret May Howard, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Robert Jason Murdoch, United States Army.
Staff Sergeant Brian E. Hall, United States Army. Private Second Class Bryce E. Gautier, United States Army. Corporal Jason G. Pouch, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Gary L. Woods Jr., United States Army. Sergeant Edward Forrest, United States Army. Airman First Class Jacob I. Ramsey, United States Air Force. Sergeant Christopher D. Loza, United States Army National Guard. Master Sergeant Daniel Richard Cousins, United States Army. Sergeant William Robert Green Jr., United States Army. A1C Joshua James Russell, United States Air Force. Tech Sergeant Audra Lynette Britt, United States Air Force. Master Sergeant Bernice Ray Wyndham, United States Air Force. Private First Class Sean Emmett Doherty, United States Army. Sergeant Eric John Ottio, United States Army. Private First Class Richard Allen Yossick Jr., United States Army. Staff Sergeant Jason Andrew Johnson, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Batista Cyprian Perez, United States Army. Sergeant Raul Moncada, United States Army. Corporal Francisco X. Aguila, United States Army. Senior Airman Philippe Bazaria, United States Air Force. Sergeant Hamilton Taylor Woodruff, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer First Class Charles Kenneth Schooneman, United States Navy. Specialist Dante Marcellus Hayes, United States Army. Private First Class Richard A. DeWater, United States Army. Specialist Kenny Marvin Rezier, United States Army. Gunnery Sergeant Andromeda Claudia Constantinovici, United States Marine Corps. Lieutenant Corporal Ray A. Spencer II, United States Marine Corps. Specialist First Class Michael James Williams, Sergeant First Class Michael James Williams, United States Army. Private First Class Tyler Bonnell Stout, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Kirby Carter Weaver, United States Air Force. Sergeant Justin Garrett Wilkerson, United States Army. Private Second Class William Bradley Blanton, United States Army. Second Lieutenant Robert Martin Staley, United States Army. And Captain Ryan Michael Davis, United States Air Force.
Petty Officer First Class Fernando Garcia Franco III, United States Navy. Master Sergeant Robert Thomas Mobley, United States Air Force. Private Second Class James Baxter McCoy, United States Army. Private First Class Janie May Askew, United States Army. Private Second Class Michael Loren Cruz, United States Army. Corporal Brad A. Davis, United States Army. Corporal William C. Comstock, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Second Class David McCarl Russell, United States Navy. Petty Officer Third Class Kristen S. Hendren Beer, United States Navy. Sergeant Bryant Nicholas Kubik Jr., United States Army. Colonel J. Thomas Stevenson, United States Air Force. Airman First Class Andrew Raymond Charles Arnett, United States Air Force. Sergeant Jason Anthony Lightfoot, United States Army. Private Paul Douglas Eaton, United States Marine Corps. Airman Gatlin Scott Green, United States Navy. Master Sergeant Stephen Walker Booth, United States Army. Sergeant Leroy O. Webster, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer Second Class Carlos Oswald Martinez, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Benjamin Levi Pigman, United States Army. Airman First Class Keith James Mylott, United States Air Force. Sergeant Wesley Jerome McCabe, United States Army. Private First Class Nicole Marie Gambala, United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel Emmett Weems Rogers, United States Army. Corporal James Stephen Holloway, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Second Class Ashley Victoria Vermillion, United States Navy. Colonel Billy James Gilstrap, United States Air Force. Petty Officer Third Class Alistair Devin Slater, United States Navy. Captain Jason Matthew Dallas, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Porter James Yeer, United States Army. Major Lee Gregory Helton, United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Brittany Nicole Morris, United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel John Dana McDonough, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Theodore L. Jarvis, United States Army National Guard. Sergeant First Class Glenda Joanne Pappas, United States Army.
Sergeant James R. McIlvaine, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Mark A. Wojciechowski, United States Marine Corps. Captain Francis R. McMahon, United States Navy. Petty Officer Second Class Tyler J. Trahan, United States Navy.
Sergeant James DeWalt Pirtle, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant William D. Vile, U.S. Army. Specialist Ryan C. King, U.S. Army.
$185 names, over 53 dates of death. This is one of our light days, unfortunately. We have red numbers for this short a period, over 300. But as we read the names each night, it's important, as I said earlier, that as an organization, we remember every generation. Every one of those servicemen and women who helped establish our freedoms throughout history, and those that preserved them, and those that keep them going forward. So before I close this section of our ceremony, I want to give anybody in the room an opportunity to say a loved one's name out loud who might not have been heard here at this moment. It doesn't matter what generation. It could be any time in our country's history. It could be a friend. It could be a neighbor. It could be someone in your community. It could be somebody you served with. It really makes no difference. But the power of saying a name out loud is more precious than anything that I know. So, if you'd like to say a name out loud, you're not obligated. Don't be shy. But sometimes we hold names in our hearts and we never speak them. And this is a safe moment to be able to say a name of someone that might be dear to you. So anyone before I close? Anyone at all? Yes, sir. Out loud.
Specialist 4, Alexander Clark, Vietnam, KIA,
Branch of service?
Army.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant Daniel Sesker, Army, Iraq.
Thank you.
Second Lieutenant Adam D. Murray's son, Iowa National Guard, Iraq.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Colonel B. Finkel, Iraq.
Branch of service? Thank you. Anyone else?
Sergeant Christopher Trujillo, United States Marine Corps.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Gunny Sergeant Justin Martoni, 2006, Iraq, U.S. Marine Corps. And
Anyone else? We could, yes, sir.
Tech Sergeant Jim Jones, Vietnam,
Branch?
Air Force.
Thank you. We could just have a moment of silence then for those that we ran for today for those that were mentioned, and for those that were unspoken. Just bow our heads. Amen. Yeah, everyone can sit down for a minute. I mentioned that we carry the Honor and Remember flag in reverence to all those that gave their lives. And I hope that you have seen it and may desire to fly it yourself, and as a statement of appreciation to the families who you don't know may be crossing your path or going by your house or your business. So consider that. It is not the state symbol of remembrance for Iowa at this point, but it is the state symbol of remembrance officially in 24 states. Iowa is not one of them. Anyone who has that kind of influence, please see me later. But it's more than just having a flag flying, in the breeze. It's about remembering individually by name. And this is what we do as an organization, which is obvious, isn't it, as to what our mission is. We want to make sure that no family is forgotten on many levels. So one of the things that we're privileged to do tonight, which we have often been able to do, but on the run probably maybe 25 presentations in the last 63 days, is we have a special presentation of a special Honor and Remember flag that is hand sewn and prepared for one individual family. And I'm holding up this Honor and Remember flag folded in a triangle because it mirrors this American flag that was folded and handed to the families at the memorial of their loved one and meant to be encased reverently and respectfully forever as a reminder of their loss from a grateful nation. But the Honor and Remember flag is folded this way to just mirror this flag one time. And once it's open, it's meant to be really a celebration of their life and a thank you to the families for all that they have given. And so I would like to ask the Barabar family to come forward, whoever that representative is. And I'm going to ask Jody to please read a biography.
First Lieutenant Malcolm Scott Barabar proudly served his country in the Iowa Army National Guard. On November 19, 2009, he commissioned as an U.S. Army infantry officer. Scott served in the 168th Infantry Battalion as an infantry platoon leader, a mortar platoon leader, a liaison officer, and a plans officer. His military education included Infantry Basic Officer Leader Course, Infantry Mortar Leader Course, Pathfinder Course, and Maneuver Captain's Career Course. He served overseas in Afghanistan in 2010-2011, where he was awarded a Bronze Star and a Combat Infantryman badge. Scott returned to Afghanistan as a private contractor working with DARPA's mobile apps for the military and continued his service commitment in the National Guard. In 2014, Scott was brought on active duty for the Iowa National Guard as a plans officer in preparation for a large joint training exercise and continued in that role until his passing. Scott was always willing to lend a helping hand to anyone. His memory lives on and he will never be forgotten. Malcolm is survived by his wife, Jamie Barabar.
This Honor and Remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of First Lieutenant Malcolm Scott Barabar. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you.
family of Roger Dreesen, please come forward. Crane Dreesen in Holstein, Iowa. He grew up on the family farm 4 miles north of Cushing, becoming part of the third generation of Dreesens at Rolling Acres. Upon graduation from Holstein High School in 1965, he attended Iowa Central Community College in Webster City, where he received an associate's degree. He entered the service with the U.S. Army in 1968, where he held the rank of Specialist 5th Class. Roger served in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969 near An-Key in the Central Highlands. After being honorably discharged in 1969, he worked for the Iowa Census Bureau before returning to the Dreesen family farm operation. Roger was united in marriage to Mary Kennedy on March 14, 1981, and the couple was blessed with 3 children. The family lived at Rolling Acres, where Roger farmed for the remainder of his life. Proud of his military service, Roger became a devoted member of the American Legion and served as the Dessa Schmidt Post 225 Commander in 2014, and also received the Honorary Lifetime Award in 2015. He also served on the Ida County Veterans Affairs Board. In 2002, Roger was diagnosed with prostate cancer, which was believed to have been caused from his exposure to Agent Orange during his service in Vietnam. He was able to keep it at bay for several years with radiation seed implants until it became serious in 2014 when the cancer grew into his bladder. He was diagnosed with prostate bladder cancer, as well as an aggressive form of cancer called small cell carcinoma. Roger had surgery that year to remove his bladder, prostate, and several cancerous lymph nodes, and underwent extensive chemotherapy and radiation treatment afterwards. In February 2015, he was declared cancer-free and lived a full healthy year until the cancer returned in 2016. Roger passed away on April 24, 2016. He is survived by his wife, Mary, of Cushing, Iowa, daughter Allison Swanson of Harcourt, Iowa, and son Adam Dreesen of Holstein, Iowa. One of his greatest joys was becoming a grandfather to grandchildren, Jolie 6 and Garrett 3, Swanson of Harcourt, Iowa. And today we have his daughter, Allison.
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Special Roger Dreesen. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you. Terry? We've presented, by the way, as an organization, over 3,000 flags in the last 10 years, spanning every generation of time up to present day. So this is something that we do regularly. We present a flag on the average of 1 every single day across the nation, and we have a growing waiting list. We get more than 1 request every day. So we have almost close to 2,000 on a waiting list to just to be presented flag. But Terry has a special thing that he wants to read to us tonight before we conclude.
Run for the Fallen proclamation. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenge, and service is personified in our armed forces and the men and women who volunteer, and those sacrifices of the fallen represent the ultimate service to our nation, and those sacrifices are paid daily by the Gold Star families and loved ones left behind. American citizens owe a debt of gratitude and remembrance to those fallen and their Gold Star families. An honor and remember is dedicated to publicly recognize each and every sacrifice. An Americans Run for the Fallen is the largest organized running tribute to fallen service members and their families, and this represents the best spirit of community, sacrifice, and service, traits we should all aspire to espouse in our work, family, and social lives. Therefore, be resolved that Lewis, Iowa, do hereby proclaim June 8, 2018 as Run for the Fallen Day in the city of Lewis, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of such an event, the sacrifice of those remembered, and the honor of Gold Star families.
there's one thing that I did not do was to recognize all the other families that are here. If you are a Gold Star family from any generation, if you have lost a loved one in service to our country by any means, if you're seated, please stand. If you're standing, please raise your hand. Please, all those families, can we honor you? That really concludes our portion of this. I'm sorry if it took too long, but what we're doing is important to all of us, I believe. One of the things that you probably have seen is people ask us about shirts. We have things over at this table if you're interested. It takes a lot of resources to get across the country, to get to here. It took a lot. If there's any way you can help us, that would be awesome, no obligation. We also, take a look at this poster, if nothing else. We have a poster over here that has the name of all 20,000 that we're running for. All the way up through the end of last year because we had to cut off to print the poster. So through December 31st of 2017, every single service member we were running for in alphabetical order is on that poster. It's really tiny, but you can read it. So it's a pretty impressive thing that we've got. Other than that, Terry, you've got instructions for Neil? Come on up, help yourself. You have someone that's going to say a blessing?
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I think I've done enough talking. Is there a chaplain in the building?